You know, every single thought you have, every emotion you feel, it's all driven by this incredible biological machine inside you. So in this explainer, we're going to dive in and see exactly how that machinery works.
I mean, really think about it for a second. Have you ever wondered how a memory you thought was long gone just pops into your head? Or what about that flutter of nerves you get right before a big presentation? It feels like magic, right? But it's not. It's actually a series of stunningly precise biological events happening inside you.
So, where do those answers lie? Well, it turns out it's all coordinated by a communication network way more intricate than any supercomputer we could ever build. It's basically your body's own high-speed internet, and it's running inside you right now. So, let's log on and trace the path of a single message.
Okay, first things first. To really get this, we need to understand one core principle. Your mind and your body, they are not separate things. They are deeply, deeply intertwined.
And that leads us to the big idea here. Every single thing you experience, I'm talking from a complex philosophical thought all the way down to a simple blink, is a direct result of biological processes. It's kind of like the physical hardware that's running the software of your mind.
All right, so if we've got this massive information network, what's actually carrying the data? What are the messages made of? To figure that out, we have to zoom way, way in on the single most important component, the messenger itself.
And here it is. Meet the neuron. This tiny little cell is basically the hero of our story today. It's the fundamental building block of your entire nervous system. Think of it like a biological wire, perfectly designed to receive, process, and then shoot out information faster than you can even blink.
And when it comes to information flow, a neuron is strictly a one-way street. A signal comes in through the dendrites, gets processed in the cell body, and then, whoosh, a new message is fired down the axon to be passed along to the next guy. There are no U-turns, no going back.
Okay, so we know the structure, right? But that's just the what. The really cool part is the how. How does a neuron actually send a message? Well, this is where things get literally electric.
The easiest way to think about it is like a light switch. When a neuron is just chilling in its resting state, it's off. It's got this negative electrical charge inside. But when it gets enough stimulation from other neurons, flip, the switch is thrown. It hits what's called the action potential, and it fires this electrical impulse all the way down its axon.
And this brings us to a really critical rule. It's called the all or none law. See, a neuron doesn't kind of fire. There's no dimmer switch here. It either fires with its absolute full force, or it doesn't fire at all. It's a pure digital yes or no system.
Okay, but here's a puzzle. How does that message get from one neuron to the next if they don't actually touch each other? Well, it performs this tiny little miracle at a gap called the synapse. The electrical signal gets to the end and it triggers the release of chemicals. Those chemicals float across the tiny gap and spark a new electrical signal in the next neuron. It's this beautiful electrical to electrical relay race.
So what are these chemicals? They're called neurotransmitters. And honestly, they're absolutely critical to who we are. Each one has a very specific job. You've got dopamine, which delivers that feel-good hit of reward. Yeah, that's the same chemical you get from a social media like. Then there's serotonin, which helps regulate your mood. And you have things like GABA, which basically acts like a brake to calm your whole system down. You could say they are the true architects of our feelings.
All right, so we've looked at the individual messengers, the neurons and neurotransmitters. Now it's time to zoom out. Let's look at the massive information highway they're all a part of. The whole shebang is broken down into two main parts. Pretty simple, really. You've got the central nervous system, that's command central, your brain and spinal cord. And then there's the peripheral nervous system, which is basically all the nerves branching out to the rest of your body, carrying messages to and from headquarters.
Now let's look at that peripheral system, because it has two very different jobs. On one hand, you have the somatic system. This is for all your voluntary, conscious actions, like deciding to pick up a pen. But on the other hand, you have the autonomic system. This is the silent, tireless operator, managing everything in the background, your heartbeat, your breathing, your digestion, all without you ever having to think about it.
And even that automatic system has two settings that are constantly working against each other, like a gas pedal and a brake. The sympathetic system is your body's accelerator. That's your fight or flight response that gets you all amped up and ready for action. And its partner, the parasympathetic system, is the brake. That's the rest and digest mode that calms you back down and saves energy. It's a perfect balancing act.
So, all these systems, all these signals, they all report back to one place. It's time to go to the headquarters, the command center of the entire operation, the brain itself.
You know, you can almost think of the brain in 3 basic layers, built up over evolutionary time from the most primitive to the most advanced. Way down at the bottom, you have the hindbrain, which handles just basic survival stuff. In the middle, the midbrain acts as a kind of relay station for your senses, and then the big one on top, the forebrain. That's where all the complex, higher-level thinking happens.
And deep inside that forebrain is a structure called the thalamus. The best way to picture it is as the brain's central sorting office or switchboard. It receives almost all the sensory information coming in. Everything you see, hear, and feel, figures out what it is, and then directs it to the right department for processing. Super important.
Right underneath that, you've got the hypothalamus. And if the thalamus is the sorting office, then the hypothalamus is the main control panel. It works 24/7 to maintain your body's internal balance, a state called homeostasis. It's the part of you that's telling you, hey, you're hungry, or you're thirsty, or whoa, it's getting too hot in here.
Now for the really famous part, that wrinkly outer layer, the cerebral cortex. This is where the magic of consciousness really seems to happen. It's divided into these specialized areas, or lobes. Up front, your frontal lobe is like the CEO, doing all the planning and complex thinking. Your parietal lobe handles touch and helps you figure out where you are in space. The temporal lobe on the sides is all about hearing and memory. And way in the back, the occipital lobe is dedicated entirely to processing everything you see.
But wait, the nervous system isn't the only game in town. There's a whole other parallel network called the endocrine system, and it works differently. Instead of lightning-fast electrical impulses, it uses chemical messengers called hormones that it sends through your bloodstream. You can think of it like the body's internal postal service. It's way slower to deliver a message, but when it arrives, its impact is much, much longer lasting.
So the really crucial question is, how do these two systems talk to each other? How does the fast system coordinate with the slow one? Well, remember the hypothalamus? That's the link. It acts as the bridge between the two, allowing the brain's instant electrical commands to influence the body's slower, long-term hormonal state. It's the master coordinator, making sure your body has a single, unified response to everything going on.
So there you have it. We've seen how our internal biology is the engine that drives our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions, which leaves us with one final, really fascinating question to think about. If our biology shapes our behavior, then what shapes our biology?